Welcome to Inside the Firm, a podcast dedicated to small business owners and hosted by entrepreneurs, Alex Gore and Lance Cayko. Each week, they take you on their journey of how to start, run, and grow a business by bringing you inside their architecture and real estate development firm. Get a behind-the-scenes tour of how these business leaders manage their clients and foster company culture while creating new and innovative projects. And now your hosts, Alex Gore and Lance Cayko.
Hey there, Inside the Firm listeners. If you haven't noticed, Alex and I have been kind of MIA with Friday's episode, but we are inserting a special episode today with my good friend and actual client, Josh Allen of DOG. So I hope you guys enjoy the episode. But before we get into it, I want to remind everybody that everybody at Inside the Firm has access to a special discount with one of our best sponsors, Dell. So if you go to dell.com/inside the firm to receive your coupon, or you call 1-800-757-8442 to speak with a small business tech advisor, be sure to mention you are a listener to Inside the Firm and you'll get a special discount on your brand new PC or hardware that you need to power your firm. So go check them out. Again, that's dell.com/inside the firm. And another shout out to ArcCat. We are nearly 3/4 of the way through the longest year ever, but it's not too late to meet your goal of increasing your firm's productivity this year. ArcCat has the tools of any size firm needs to compete, whether it's using ArcCat's powerful search tool to find product data, downloading high quality specifications, getting right BIM for your model, or using patented Spec Wizard to configure a specification in minutes. Best of all, it's free and requires no registration. So check out arccat.com. That's ARCAT.com and start building better content today. Welcome to Inside the Firm. Today I have a special guest. His name is Josh Allen, and he and his wife Holly started the original DOG location in 2008 with a mission to provide high-quality holistic pet products and top-notch services to pet owners in Bozeman, Montana. Since then, DOG has grown up in the thriving pet industry, receiving multiple national pet industry awards and successfully transitioning into a franchise model and soon to be opening in Colorado in the spring of 2021. Most recently, DOG was recognized as one of Inc. magazine's 5,000 fastest growing private companies in America. And last but certainly not least, Josh and DOG have hired yours truly, F9, to design and possibly build out their first expansion into Colorado. Josh, welcome to Inside the Firm.
Thanks, Lance. Happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm glad we could make time. I know we're both super busy guys, so this was a treat, and especially to have an actual client. Technically, I know the franchisees who hired us, but we're also working with you to develop your standards. So this is the first time that we've probably had anybody like you on in that capacity. So maybe you could kick us off with telling us, why and how you launched your original DOG location in Bozeman in 2008.
Yeah, so at that time, I was in healthcare, had my own career. I was happy. My wife was a veterinary technician, like a lead tech at a surgery center here in Bozeman. And she just kept coming home and saying, gosh, these clients at the vet clinic are asking me, hey, vet tech, can you help me find this natural food or a more holistic remedy? Or, I just kept hearing that, her make those comments. And so I honestly started looking around at franchises, little franchise concepts that she could do. Like I had my career and just wanted to get her something that she could run. And we just wasn't impressed with the franchise options at that time in the industry. Now there's a few more, including us, but and started looking into the pet industry for her, and man, this is kind of a legit thing. At that time, it was a $60 billion industry. Now it's way more than that annually in the U.S. It seemed to be resilient in slower economic times, which, this was 2006 when we were talking about this, and so we were in boomtown then. It was, especially in Bozeman where we live, the economy was cranking, lots of construction and tech companies moving to town. And then so by the time we got our ducks in a row to actually open the business, it was 2008. And that was right on the edge of the cliff of the recession, signed the lease open the doors in August and September, down we go. But so that was the original genesis of it. It was just kind of a local need, a local niche that we felt was unfilled in our town. And so we filled it. And, luckily we picked an industry that was fairly resilient even in slower economic times and survived that initial 2008 kind of crash in the economy.
Yeah, what a time to start. I know that's when we started too. It wasn't quite 2008. 2008 was when Alex and I got laid off. But then, we started in 2009, at the end of 2009, 2010, still very tough, right? And
Yep.
Architecture and real estate was just at the bottom. So I hear you there. But everything's up from there. For the most part, it seems like.
Yeah. We didn't know the boom, of 2005, 6, 7. We didn't experience any of that. So for us, it was just, that's how things were. And we just had to dig and claw and scratch and be as best as we knew how to be to our customers and to our one employee. And luckily we made it through, and now we're kind of realizing the benefits of that early foundation.
What separates DOG from big box stores? Obviously, like instantly when you threw out the $60 billion figure, I thought, oh yeah, that's right. There's places like PetSmart, and I don't want to put you in that category, but I think you obviously do separate yourself in that way. So was that something you guys were obviously cognizant from the beginning, and was it a concerted effort to move in a different direction?
Yeah, absolutely. At that time, we had, part of the genesis of the story of DOG was we had rescued this little Papillon dog, little chic little rescue dog thing. And we still have him today. He's 14. He's still going. But he had some health problems, and, so we were going to PetSmart and getting poor customer service and walking up and down the aisles with no help. And, so finding him products that helped him like in a holistic way. So the products were one thing. And then we knew what we didn't want to be in related to that box store experience. So we wanted to create a more intimate boutique kind of feel with products that were mostly unavailable in those box stores. So that's part of how we differentiate, is the stuff that we have on our shelves you're mostly not able to find in PetSmart, or not able to find at all in PetSmart, mostly not able to find in Petco. And of course, Amazon's got most of the whole world on Amazon right now. But so the way we differentiate from the box stores is the product mix and the customer service, and the product knowledge and customer service that our employees represent for DOG is top notch. And then the business model of the services that we offer, so we have grooming, daycare, and DIY dog wash, coupled with that unique mix of retail products. That's the big differentiator. Even nationally now, PetSmart's doubling down on their veterinary clinics that are in most of their stores. Petco's opening up these little grooming boutique things. And so they're moving towards adding more customized services to their businesses. And we've been doing that since the start. Mm-hmm. So the model, and then the products, and then the shopping experience is kind of how we differentiate from the box stores.
Yeah. I don't want to gloss over two points I think you made that I just want to point out to the audience, is that what Josh did was, and this is so critical for anybody that's starting a business, is he and his wife identified a need. In other words, they literally through their anecdotal experience, but I'm sure that you could multiply that obviously, and it's true because he's running a successful franchise business now. But they identified a need in the industry that needed to be filled. And the second thing they did was, then they figured out what did they hate about the competitors and what they were doing, and how could they do it better. So then they ended up filling a niche. And I think that's the critical thing. When we have other business owners like yourself that hire us to do their stores and their new startups. And if you can check those three boxes, I think you're off to the right start. If you can maybe only check one, I think you're gambling. Like your gamble is much higher from a rate of return. Tell me about you as an entrepreneur. Have you always been? I know you had I'll call it a 9-to-5 job, but because it wasn't your own business, like you talked about at the beginning of this podcast. But have you ever always had an entrepreneurial spirit, or did you grow up in a family of entrepreneurs, and then is your wife kind of following that suit?
Yeah, good question. My parents, my mom's a nurse, my dad's was a heavy equipment operator. I grew up in a really blue collar family. But my grandpa in particular, they lived in a little Montana town, but they owned the hardware store and the hotel and the cafe. And I just saw him, being an entrepreneur in his own way. And he was an immigrant straight from France, just a hardworking.
Oh, cool.
But he did it. He was making it work. And he also was a really good model for me to leverage his business success for good. Like he started a church camp and a youth camp thing that, I grew up going to when I was a kid, helping out. And so I saw my grandparents model that for me as a kid. And, we've got, hopefully we'll be able to talk about this dog toy brand that I started, that we're leveraging that to provide meals for kids. And so we're trying to use our business to make the world a better place, kind of like my grandpa did. And then on my wife's side, her parents are longtime entrepreneurs. They're bought and sold companies over the years. And Holly, my wife's dad, has been kind of a mentor for me, kind of getting started, being our own being our own boss, being the sole proprietor to start with, and growing a business. He's helped a lot there.
Yeah, that's great. We will get into your nonprofit stuff. I love it too. I'm actually starting a nonprofit myself, and that's one of the best things I like about free market entrepreneurs is, we can take ourselves and our employees and our businesses to a level of to where we actually have enough extra capital, and we can start doing those extra things voluntarily and really affecting the world in positive ways. So let's go forward in time just a little bit then. Based on that, and talking about grandpa and help from the father-in-law, what do you guys think is some of the best and worst lessons you learned starting up the first DOG location? I always like to ask that question because I think hindsight's 20/20. So maybe you can, but you can give that hindsight to people who are listening. It's certainly helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I mentioned that we started with one employee that very, it was a dog groomer, and she's still with the company today. So we've managed to create a culture that, like, Bozeman's a fast growing place. It's like a mini version of Colorado, and it's, McDonald's is hiring $18 an hour, and tire shops are, so it's hard to keep employees here. And so we've managed to create a culture that the people stay. And so I think the way we've done that is by doing what we said we're going to do, right? So being a high integrity leader is definitely like at the top of the list. Treat people well and do what you say you're going to do, which is sometimes hard to do when you're an entrepreneur and you've got like a bunch of different ideas and you've got a million balls in the air that you're trying to juggle. Sometimes you drop them and it seems like you didn't do what you said you're going to do. So treating people well and acting with integrity is definitely at the top or near the top of the list.
Yeah, definitely. That's so important, especially and I'm so glad you pointed out the microeconomic conditions in Bozeman. I worked for several summers out in east of near West Yellowstone in the Centennial Valley out there. So I'm very familiar with Bozeman in that area. And it is the growth there is 100% incredible. It reminds me of the Boulder Valley, those kind of prices that you're having to compete with against even just fast food places. It's sort of the same thing here. So, treating people well, especially when this idea that the company man or woman is now gone. I think it's making entrepreneurs like us with small businesses refocus on culture. And to be fair, the bigger like tech megaliths like Google, Facebook, the way their culture, I think there is some top-down influence that's happening on flexibility. I know you probably can't allow people to work from home, obviously, but on our side of things, that's kind of one of the things we're seeing as well. For all of your locations that you've now worked on, you've hired architects and designers, and our audience, as I told you, is primarily architects in the design community, but we do have other business owners. I mean, there's some serial entrepreneurs listening. If you could speak to them right now about what folks like yourself are looking for when you're selecting a designer or a design firm to work with, what would you say you're looking for, and what makes you eventually feel compelled to hire one over the other?
Yeah, I think, being a business guy and needing the numbers to make sense, financially, obviously that's near the top of the list. We're advising these franchisees, on the first check they usually write from their little business loan or whatever seed money they put into the company is to the architect, to do the initial layout of their TI project for their space. So we help them with that. We help them, select the architect and help them with the initial set of plans so they can get their TI project going. And so I think price is important, but it's not the number one thing. It's more about kind of that fit and feel. Like it's hard to get these days with a bunch of Zoom calls and stuff, but I really like to look someone in the eye and shake their hand and, Purell, your hand first, of course. That it's got to have the right, like small town yet high quality feel to work for us. We, those big firms that are, multiple cities and across state lines and stuff, it usually just feels a little corporate-y. And so we work with our local franchisees to find a local architect that can kind of help them along the way. So it's got to definitely be high quality and top notch, but we like the more boutique kind of feel that we have in our stores, and we also like that to be represented in the architecture firm that we pick.
Yeah, that sounds like it all makes sense. Obviously, then it's a better match. We like to joke that it's when you hire an architect or you're working with a client house, a new commercial building, new TI or something. It is like a little marriage for a little bit. So everybody needs to get along, obviously, and it has to be fun too. I kind of demand that it has to be fun because you might only do this once in your life. Like you might only do a custom house once in your life. You might only do your one little business once in your life and kind of take it to the end. Tell us about franchising. How many franchises do you have? And then what's your experience been like and some of the lessons you've learned about that's helping you make better decisions as you further franchise now outward from Montana?
Yeah. So the experience of taking our little mom and pop concept and turning it into a model that other people could use and leverage was like a huge learning experience, right? I'd never done anything like that. And most people, when they do that, they take on some type of outside capital or bring on an investor that can fund it. And we didn't do that. We chose to kind of keep everything in house and learn it ourselves. And like, that's more my style. But I did hire a consultant that helped us through it. Through my connections, found a couple that we interviewed. Most of them were 6 figures plus to even help you get all of your disclosure documents and legal stuff and FTC compliance and all that in order. I ended up hiring a consultant, kind of a smaller guy, smaller shop, kind of same feel, in Buffalo, New York. And so he flew out to Montana and we worked it out. And so he helped us through that first year of kind of getting everything going. Unique for us was that we only had 2 locations at the time in one town. So my wife and I knew that we had this successful model that we wanted to expand, but we were a young family, had young kids, we still do. And so I didn't want to be, Montana's pretty spread out. It's 2 or 3 hours between markets that could actually hold a business like this. So I just didn't want to fund all of them for one thing, be financially responsible for this expansion, and then ultimately didn't want to have to be driving all around everywhere. So we chose to go the franchise model, maybe a little early because we only had the 2 stores in one market, but it worked. So now we've got 5 in Montana, and we sold our 2 corporate flagship stores in Bozeman to a local couple. And so we don't actually own any of the stores anymore. We're strictly focused on supporting them and kind of slowly or appropriately growing the brand. And so we're real excited to have our brand in Colorado now. And that's our first outside of Montana expansion. And, the franchising process was, it's not running a retail dog boutique. It's like now you're like an education company, basically, sales and education company. And so it was a big transition, but we're happy with it. And we're really enjoying the empowering others, helping them run their business versus us being in the grind day to day. So it's been a great transition. It was really hard, and it's still really hard, but I like the strategy and the business thinking versus the day-to-day grind. Yeah,
exactly. It's like playing a bigger game of chess. I'm with you there. We've been considering franchising at Adventure at some point. How much, not an exact dollar figure, but if you're in a position like you were in, where the 6-figure consultant is just out of the realm of things, what does a smaller shop like that cost? A consultant. Are you looking at 10, 20,000, something in that range?
No, it was 50 or 60 just for the consultant, probably. And that was, years ago, probably 2015 or 16 that I was working on that. So I would assume everything's more expensive now. I don't know, because I haven't, I don't use those consultants anymore, but generally it's not just I'm going to invest in another $20,000 piece of equipment in my business to make it better. It's a significant jump.
Yeah, definitely. How did you find that person? I mean, was it just Google, or were you talking with other, business owners?
No, it was through a leadership conference that I attend, that I help with, not related to pets, not related to franchising at all. It was just like a business development deal that, one of the guys I knew of this other franchise that was in the franchise world. So it was kind of an organic connection, I guess.
Is that one of the dogs?
Yeah, it is. Sorry, that's this.
That's all right. I'm just going to give the listeners some context. Yeah. It's all good. It's all good. Well, very cool. I mean, that's some insight I was hoping to pull out of you today about franchising. Yeah. I know it's, there's just not a lot of people on the planet that have done it if you look at it from a percentage. So I appreciate you giving us, that kind of detail. On what
you definitely could just do the traditional Google search and, cold call some folks, but I don't usually operate that way. I like the personal connection and kind of the more organic grassroots stuff.
Yeah. Well, that's exactly the way it sounds like your whole business has been built, which I really love that. Did you guys come up with a formal business plan too when you started, or was it really organic? Because our firm, we did not. We just went for it.
Yeah, we self-funded it at the beginning. Not us. We talked to some family members and scraped together some little bit of cash to do the build out, and had an architect buddy that just did the plans for us for free, initially. And so when we approached our family members, we had a little slideshow kind of concept. But I didn't know how to project, to develop a P&L and make some projections. And I've learned all that stuff now. But
yeah.
Back then it was pretty like bootstrap land, but now one of the services we provide for our franchisees is a, kind of script for their business plan, so they can take that and build it out for their market and then go approach their local banks for a loan. So we do provide that now, but I had no idea how to do it back then.
Yeah, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Like I said, I actually think some of the best businesses start that way, where it's just it tackles the three things that we talked about earlier, and you're off to the races, and you can pull it together. I think the odds are going to be in your favor for sure. Yeah. What is your ultimate goal for DOG, and then how do you guys plan to get there now that you're moving into other states? And by the way, I think you could not have picked a better state than Colorado. And obviously, I'm biased, but the dog culture here is so vibrant. And maybe that's one of the things you looked at. Everybody's got a dog, if not 2 or 3.
Yeah. I agree that, our franchisees there in Longmont, that they found us, we're not really marketing that much, and they're originally from Montana. So it really felt great. And we had our eye on the Colorado market for as a possible first expansion out of Montana. And so it was exciting. It just was a great circumstance that they approached us. It's somewhat saturated in parts of, Denver Metro, parts of Colorado for little boutique dog stores like ours. But our model with the services and the retail is different than most of those other little boutique stores that are mostly just retail goods and maybe some grooming. And then in Longmont specifically, there's not really anything there. So it was a really great fit for us. And a bigger picture, where we want DOG to go. We're really bullish on what we have going on. We think that it's a really strong model for a lot of different places, but we also like I said before, we're not going to get the cart before the horse and try to expand really big, really fast. It's still just my wife and I, supporting these stores. And so we need to start to build our team so we can appropriately support more and more and more. So we're just going to grow slowly and maybe add a store or two per year. And I like that model of growth versus the pressure and the stress of taking on outside capital and reporting to other people. So we're just going to grow slow and steady. And, I don't know what it looks like 5 or 10 years down the road for DOG, but hopefully we're still here and we're kind of have a robust regional presence, and then we'll go from there.
Beautiful. Yeah. Switching things up a bit, and we already kind of alluded to getting to this. Tell us about your nonprofit work with, and is it just WO? Is that how I should?
Yeah, so we say it WO.
WO, okay.
It's a short little acronym, stands for Widow and Orphan. So I, just quick backstory. I found myself in Ethiopia 2014 or so on a service trip, right, for a church, like a mission trip, and you go to one of those developing countries and you just get your world rocked. I mean, it's like there's so much need. And so came back from that and was like, man, how do we leverage this dog store business that we have to help these kids around the world that just need a warm meal or just, need a place to sleep. And so we decided to do something separate from DOG, but in the same industry. We had all the connections. I knew manufacturers, I knew retailers, I knew distributors. And so we decided to start a dog toy brand where we'd make the toys, we'd sell the toys, and then from each toy sold, we could carve off enough margin to donate 2 meals to widows or orphaned kids. So that's where the WO comes from. So we did that, did crowdfund campaign, started with one product. I knew that if it failed, I could at least sell them in my stores and then we'd be done. But it didn't fail and it's still going. And so now we've got, I started with the one product. Now we've got 20 different SKUs of dog toys and we make them in Montana and in Washington State. The plush toys with the squeaker inside are sewn in Washington State. And then the durable injection mold toys are made about 20 minutes from my house in a factory here. So now we're selling them through distribution. They're in a few hundred stores across the country, and we've just crossed the 100,000 meals donated benchmark, I guess, earlier this year. So we're directly making the world a better place through, leveraging people's passion for their pets. It's really fun, and it's all USAID, which is kind of hard to find sometimes. So we're supporting local jobs in Montana and in the Seattle area, and then funding meals in Ethiopia. And then now we've recently partnered with Feeding America, which is the network of U.S. food banks. So we're able to help here at home and in Africa, both. That is phenomenal. What a beautiful story. I'm so glad you took that leap and decided to go in that direction. Just as the fellow volunteerist, I just love that. I love stuff like that. We kind of stole the Tom's Shoes model. So it's actually a for-profit company. Right. Not that I'm paying myself anything from that company, but we're leveraging that business model to provide meals, and maybe someday it'll pay me a little small paycheck or something. But for now, it's just a way to give back and leverage our industry to help others. Yeah, very cool. There's one last question that I always like to ask everybody who's a guest on the show as we wrap things up, and that is, knowing what you know now, and if you could go back in time when you first started DOG, what is one piece of advice you would give yourself as you start out? Yeah, I think in a strictly business sense, it's you're an entrepreneur and you're starting things up, and it's kind of chaos land at the beginning. And you're just hitting balls as they're coming across the plate and not really thinking ahead too much. But one area that I wish was tighter when we started was I wish I would have had a really good CPA partner to take my books and make sure, fixing that stuff a few years in was challenging because I didn't know any better. So even as someone that's maybe considering starting a new business or a new firm or whatever, an initial first key partner is a good CPA or a good business accountant of some kind, which I didn't have. So that's something that I wish I would have done back then that would have made things easier a few years down the road once it started to kind of take off. I would 100% echo that. We made the same mistake, and then 3 years later, after we were finally profitable enough to the point where we had steady income,
we both bought houses, and that was in order to buy the house, both of us, it was like, your books are a mess. And we're like, well, okay, so we should. So don't be afraid. Josh was right. I'm right. They're especially if it's just a bookkeeper and they're not a licensed CPA, that even goes a long way. Just if you have somebody taking a look at your QuickBooks or FreshBooks or whatever software, or even if it's just a spreadsheet you're keeping track of your P&L, that's good to go. Josh, this has been an absolute pleasure. So glad you came on the show today. Where can people find you and follow you, and for both of your work, DOG and then
so DOG's, it's all spelled out. It's a funny name, so it's DEE-O-GEE.com. And once it's hard to get the first time, but once you get it, it kind of sticks in your brain. So it's so DOG.com, all spelled out, 4 E's, 2 hyphens. And then Whoa is the dog toy brand. The URL there is supportwhoa.com. So the word support, and then the letter W, and then the letter O.com. And then there's social media stuff that you can find on both of those places. So those are the two, DOG.com and supportwhoa.com.
Beautiful. Awesome, Josh. Thanks for being on the show. We'll talk soon.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Lance.